and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! This is a podcast based on a blog of the same name because I think it would be a pretty strange thing if we changed it now, right? My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out the blog at couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground for something you like. For at Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the blog or the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and via Google Play to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows, including, but not limited to, How to Get Away with Murder, Broadchurch, New Girl, Game of Thrones, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, American Horror Story, Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Gotham, Supernatural, The Vampire Diaries, Grimm, The 100, Once Upon a Time, the DC television universe, including Arrow, The Flash, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl, and The X-Files. In addition, more episodes are in the works, including a revisit for Doctor Who, a new panel covering the Mindy Project, new series examining Gilmore Girls, including the Gilmore Girls reboot, A Year in the Life, and Sherlock, and because we also look back at shows now past, we'll be looking back at Glee. What's more, CPU from time to time goes live. We've appeared at Comedy Outlet Mondays at Dog Story Theater and at Grand Rapids Comic-Con in Grand Rapids, Michigan, while streaming live on Facebook. More live appearances are being planned, so make sure you like us at our Facebook page, our Twitter, follow us at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, and or our Pinterest at CPU Podcast, or subscribe to the blog, our YouTube channel, our iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Play. In the meantime, if you don't hear your show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we're always seeking new panelists, so if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any one of those outlets aforementioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback. Just don't kidnap us and drag us into the upside down. It's kind of scary in there. Today, we are around the water cooler and taking a first look at Season 1 of Stranger Things, which was released in its entirety to the Netflix streaming library on July 15th, 2016, with a total of 8 episodes, which means, for the record, that the show is legally available to Netflix subscribers exclusively, as it is Netflix-produced original content. Netflix, you owe me money. Stranger Things is an American science fiction horror web television series created, written, directed, and co-executive produced by the Duffer Brothers. The first season stars Winona Ryder, David Harbour, Finn Wolfhard, Millie Bobby Brown, Gaten Matarazzo, Caleb McLaughlin, Natalia Dyer, Charlie Heaton, Cara Buono, and Matthew Modine, with Noah Schnapp and Joe Keery in recurring roles. Set in the fictional town of Hawkins, Indiana, in the 1980s, the first season focuses on the investigation into the disappearance of a young boy by his brother, traumatized mother, and the local police chief amid supernatural events occurring around the town, including the appearance of a psychokinetic girl who helps the missing boy's friends in their own search. The nearby Hawkins National Laboratory seemingly performs scientific research for the U.S. Department of Energy, but secretly does experiments into the paranormal and supernatural, including those that involve human test subjects, which start to affect the unknowing residents of Hawkins in calamitous ways. The Duffer Brothers developed the series as a mix of investigative drama alongside supernatural elements with childlike sensibilities, establishing its time frame in the 1980s and creating an homage to pop culture of that decade. Several themes and directorial aspects were inspired and aesthetically informed by the works of Steven Spielberg, John Carpenter, Stephen King, Robert Zemeckis, Wes Craven, and George Lucas, among others. The series has received several industry nominations and awards, including winning the Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by an Ensemble in a Drama Series in 2016. On August 31st, 2016, Netflix renewed the series for a second season of 9 episodes, which is set to be released on October 31st of 2017. Stranger Things may also ostensibly be the most popular TV selection ever covered on the CPU podcast, as a dozen people or so jumped up to volunteer to chat about these seminal 8 episodes, since Stranger Things was the eminent water cooler show of summer 2016. The 6 you hear on this panel today, your moderator included, are all occasional to frequent CPU panelists and ready to get stranger, as it were, so as always it should be noted that all of our panelists have viewed the entire series to date and will discuss sensitive plot points. I mean, they will. So for those of you who haven't watched watched any of Stranger Things and plan to catch up at some point, listen at your own risk, as there are going to be major spoilers. At this time, I'm going to have the panel introduce themselves. For those who listen to CPU, you should know the drill. They all do, I'm sure. What I'm going to do is ask each of the panelists to identify themselves by their first name only, if you please. Tell us how you came to watch Stranger Things, what made you start watching, how'd you find out about it, what kept you watching, and then I'm going to have you answer the CPU standard character question, though the question changes with each show we do. Are you ready, panel?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
All right. Some of us aren't, but that's okay.
Sorry, I don't know where my head was. I'm ready.
Okay, good. So I'm going to ask you, how would you rate your interest in this show, Stranger Things? Do you watch it because you love the horror aspects and or you may have had a hand in creating the horror? You think the show is a wonderful experiment in nostalgic storytelling and you can't wait for more, even though it will most likely result in nightmares or your death, spoiler, like Dr. Martin Brenner? Do you watch it because you love the child characters and because you think the story is a great adventure along the lines of Goonies or Stand By Me, like Mike Wheeler? Do you watch it because you secretly love the show, though you won't admit it because you don't talk much? You're happy that others like it too because it means you might have friends for the first time in your life. Also, the show might scare you a little, like you scare you a little, like 11. Do you watch it because you love the romances? They're a great callback to all of those Brat Pack flicks and cheesy 80s rom-coms, like Nancy Wheeler. Do you watch it because you're intrigued by the mystery and want to see the characters, particularly Joyce, find a happy ending, even though you know only too well that not everyone gets such an ending, like Jim Hopper? Do you watch it because your family watches it, even though you don't think it's a good idea that they do, and you're kind of helplessly along for the ride, hoping to protect your family from the horrors they might find, like Jonathan Byers? Do you watch it because your friends watch it, even though you're not sure that your friends are operating with good judgment, like Dustin Henderson? Do you watch it, but it's hard for you to handle? The danger in which the children find themselves hits all too close to home. Or you watch it because you're a big fan of flicks like Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Heathers, and so on, like Joyce Byers. Do you watch it, but you're wary of it? You think kids shouldn't be involved in watching this show, which presents some pretty dangerous ideas to innocent minds, like Lucas Sinclair. Do you only watch it because you think the 80s backdrop is kind of sexy in that wham bam thank you ma'am sort of way, like Steve Harrington? Now, I don't expect any of the panel to answer this, but I put it out there for your consideration. You don't watch it because you think it's horrifying and you'd rather stay oblivious to the truths lurking beneath your small town, like Karen Wheeler, or you don't watch it because you're trapped in the upside down, like Will Byers. Who would like to start?
I'll go first. Sure.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Michael.
Hi, Michael.
This is my first ongoing podcast.
Welcome to your first
Yay.
ongoing podcast.
I only do the one-offs usually, so I apparently watch all the TV in the past. Anyway, so I came to watch the show. I like to follow pop culture type blogs, and so everyone was saying like, hey, have you heard about this new series, Stranger Things? And I was like, what's this? And so I started hearing other people watching it, and then I clicked on it on Netflix, and I was like, my god, this show is amazing. So I am very much like a combination of Mike Wheeler, because I relate to him on a very visceral level, but also because I'm interested in the kids most of all. And I'm also a lot like Hopper because I like the mystery and I want to see where the mystery goes. And again, I also kind of relate to him on a very visceral level. So, yes, I'm a combination of Mike Wheeler and Hopper.
All right. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
I'm Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
I'm obsessed with everything horror related. I actually knew about this show probably a year before anybody else did. The guys that made it, they were lobbying to direct Stephen King's It because they're obsessed with that. Once they lost that opportunity, they decided to write their own script, which I mean, you can obviously feel the homages in that.
Yep.
So I was following the whole production of it, and I was very excited about it. And then, I mean, it was even better than I imagined. I mean, so many horror references. It is such a love letter for horror fans and fans of all of the 80s. I loved it. Obviously, for characters based on those descriptions, I'd be Dr. Brenner.
Okay.
That's fair.
Just gonna scooch away here a little bit.
Welcome back, Kyle.
I'm just going to go next because we're a package deal. I'm Hilary.
You're a package deal?
We're a package deal because Kyle is my husband and the moderator is my sister.
That's true.
And if you listen to other podcasts with us, then you kind of already know that.
Hi, Hilary.
Hi. So I basically came to be aware of this show because of my husband, because he is so obsessively in the know about these things and generally knows about them before anybody else does. So he watched it first, and then at first I didn't quite watch it. I was more like Dustin. I watched it because he recommended it. I really wasn't sure if he just was saying it was good because he was biased. Didn't really know what was going on there. But out of marriage love, I still watched it, and I did not regret it. It was amazing, and I was immediately enthralled. Because of that, I became kind of more like Mike, just probably the same thing that everybody else is going to say. I love the kids. I love their adventures. I love the whole story surrounding them and all the nostalgic homages that get referenced throughout the entire thing. I feel slightly a little bit like 11 because even though...
You're scared of yourself.
A little bit. Sometimes. At first I thought I secretly loved the show, and then I realized how much everybody else loved the show. Like, everyone else was talking about it. Everybody I worked with was talking about it. And it kind of blew my mind. And also, things are scary. The Upside Down. I'm desensitized by many scary things, but the Upside Down, it's scary.
Yeah, I know.
Things have never scared me. That kind of does. And I do also feel a little bit like Jim. Like, I want to support these characters. I want to, again, I get kind of wrapped up in the mystery, kind of like Michael said. And I really want them to do well in this story. I don't feel like it's going to happen a lot of the time. But I feel like I want to support them. So.
Okay.
Sorry,
back,
all my
Hilary.
characters. It was really hard to choose.
Yeah, but that's kind of par for you. Maybe not as much as Kristen. Welcome back, Hilary.
Well, I'm Chelsea.
Hi, Chelsea.
Hi.
The gentleman sitting to my right here is my husband. He's the one I get to thank for getting me involved in the show.
Okay.
Similar to Hilary in the sense that, out of love, you want to give what your spouse is, really into a try. And I am not into horror at all. I'm not into watching scary movies. Like, I have had an aversion to those sorts of movies my whole life. So sci-fi and that whole genre, I really don't watch it because of that, because I'm a scaredy cat. And so Rob actually, watched one episode and then was like, I can't go on until you watch this and, say yes or no. I was hooked pretty much after that first introduction to the first episode, and then they played the music and it was just like, oh my God, my life is over. So that was kind of what got me hooked. Characters really just kind of brought me back, their storylines. I would say I am the Joyce Byers in this situation. I narrowed it down to 4, but I really am. I'm just going to go with the Joyce because the danger is kind of hard for me to handle. Again, I'm a scaredy cat, but just feeling, like I needed to know what happened to these characters and, just kind of couldn't, like a train wreck. Like you can't look away. That's what it was for me. And I was a big fan of Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands, and I guess just Winona Ryder in general during, her 80s and 90s movies. So I think, Winona.
Okay.
She did it for me.
All right. Well, welcome back, Chelsea. You may have last heard Chelsea's voice on our ongoing Game of Thrones podcast, along with...
Hi, I'm Rob.
Hi, Rob.
Hello. Yes, as previously introduced, I found the show. We'd seen it on Netflix Q. Obviously, it was very popular, so it was near the top. I have never clicked on it, and then a friend at work told me about it. I enjoy science fiction, but not as much on the horror side, so that's why I had my apprehensions. I'm just not a scary movie guy. But yeah, I started watching it one night by myself and instantly knew it was a hit, that I had to wait then and pause it so Chelsea could catch up and watch it together. For me, what got me was when she spelled out the lights. And the R-U-N, chills. It's like, oh my goodness, that show's going to be amazing. And I think we set a record for binge watching with this one. We're pretty good at it, but I think we got done with this one in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just went through it so quick.
I think we were up until 3 in the morning.
Yeah, it was one of those where I was like, tired in the morning.
One more.
That's when Netflix asks you the question.
Are you still watching?
And for me, with TV shows, openings, and especially opening themes, I love them, and I think there's a lot high on my list, but this one, I think, tops it. The synthesizer, the music, the actual, font that they chose, it just sucks you right in. For characters, I think I would be Hopper. The mystery, the intrigue, that's what kind of got me, down the path of the show. I think I enjoyed his character arc the most as well, so.
Okay. Well, welcome back, Rob.
Well, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And, of course, I'm Kylie, which I've mentioned. And I started watching Stranger Things. It's probably one I would have watched, except what kind of, I guess, thrust it to the immediate spotlight was that it literally was the water cooler show. Like, Facebook blew up when this show came out on Netflix. And I, of course, know all these people on this panel. That's usually how it happens. But, there wasn't any one person that said, watch Stranger Things. It literally was hundreds of people talking about Stranger Things. So I was like, well, we're going to cover it on the podcast. Done. And I would agree with everything Rob said about watching it. It literally was a draw from the theme song right in. It was visceral is a good word. And I'm going to put out there now, early on, that I am the oldest on the podcast panel today, and I lived through the entire decade of the 80s. I was born in the late 70s, thank you very much. So watching this show was like a vivid flashback for me in very many ways, except with all of these scary things happening. So I have two characters. For me, it's a combination between Mike. I think it's a great adventure. I like the child characters the best. It reminds me of Goonies a lot, only scarier, or Stand By Me, only much scarier. But I'm also Joyce, because I'm not a scary movie person either. I will watch them, select ones, not all of them. I don't come anywhere near my sister and brother-in-law. When it comes to horror, there are ones that I can be talked into. This one I thought, well, I'll give it a chance, but it is a little hard to handle. But I am a fan of Winona Ryder. I like everything she's done, and I was kind of fascinated that she came out of the woodworks for this one, and that was half my curiosity in watching the show was, oh, Winona Ryder's back. Let's see what she's doing since Black Swan. So it's the combination of the two, but ultimately I do really love the show. It's very unique for being extremely homage-y. And I think we'll get into that. But before we do, now because this is a show that CPU is covering for the very first time, what we call one of our first looks, I now have to ask the panel table around the water cooler, to give us one of the star ratings, or as the star business, as Hilary might call it.
I do tend to call it that.
Yes. So what I'm going to do is have each of you rate it along the CPU rating scale. I'm going to read the rating scale and then let you go around the table, explain how you rate it and why. Half stars are acceptable. If you get too fractional, I might have to kill you. Okay. So
4 3/4.
No.
4
I actually do an average, so don't make the math hard. So, how would you rate Stranger Things overall? Is it 5 stars? You have to watch everything. Holy smokes, it's the greatest thing you've ever watched on TV in your whole life, ever since the dawn of time. Stranger Things is a 5-star show. Is it 4 stars? It certainly seems intriguing. You're going to keep watching, but you see some possible pitfalls in the premise. Is it 3 stars? You're going to give it one more try come season 2. There are things you like and things you don't, but you'll see which things are allowed to flourish, if you will. Is it 2 stars? You only watched part of season 1. Chances are you were mainly bored, but there's some intrigue or fascination that could hold it together no matter how unlikely, and you can't convince yourself yet to keep watching. And I doubt anyone's going to answer this one, but is it 1 star? Pass on this one, guys. It's a snoozer, not funny, not interesting, not scary, not your cup of tea, etc. There are too many options to waste time on this one. So much more TV out there. 1 star. Who would like to start this one?
Definitely a 5.
Okay.
I mean, just for the mere fact that you all just said right now, I mean, for me personally, yes, 5. I couldn't stop watching it. I also binge watch it very quickly. Like, I can't even wait to see what happens. It makes me mad that I have to wait to see what's going to happen, actually. But just for the mere fact that everybody loves it, even like you or some of the other listeners or watchers, viewers, who basically they're not into that type of thing. And it has literally become such a phenomenon. But yes, definitely a 5. Holy smokes. Can't wait to see what continues.
I would also give it a 5. I mean, everyone mentions the homages, but I mean, even beyond that, there isn't a single bad actor in the show, even the small parts. Even, I mean, the cook, who's only in like one episode, he was like such a well-grounded character, and like you learn his whole arc in like one episode, and you're sad to see him leave. Like, acting like that is amazing, and I feel like it was a perfect amount of episodes. There was no filler. Everything just flowed naturally, and it's just, I mean, it's really well put together. I mean, I couldn't really find any flaws with it if I wanted to.
Okay.
He's on This Is Us now. Yeah, he's Toby on This Is Us.
I don't watch it yet. Yet.
Yet.
It's a candidate for, I've had a request or a few. So
I'm going to give it 4.5.
okay.
Because while I love it very much, it's a brilliant show. I love the premise. I love the characters. The reason I'm a little trepidation on giving it 5 is that there is that little inkling in the back of my head that is like, I wonder how this is going to sustain itself over time. So I feel like that's the only reason. And you did mention in the 4-star thing is that there are, what did you say, I see possible pitfalls in the premise. So I think that's what knocks it down for me to half star. It's just like, well, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I still love it. I'll still watch season 2 and 3 and who knows how many. But it'll be interesting to see how it sustains itself over time.
There are a lot of Dungeons and Dragons monsters.
Yes. Good point.
Oh, no.
Well, I'll bring the average back up then. I'd give it a 5. Just based off the momentum it has and how much it left me wanting more at the end of the last episode. Going into it, I felt like it was maybe going to be just a one-season thing because it seemed to be wrapping up at the end. And then all of a sudden, well, I'm sure we'll discuss later, it just slaps you across the face. Hey, nope, we're not done here. There's going to be more. And I know, was it the Super Bowl when they had the trailer for season 2?
Teaser.
And you know, they had shown the names of the episodes previously, but actually to see the trailer, see just little bits and pieces of what's coming, obviously reignites that flame of just wanting to see more and clearly know what we're going to be doing around Halloween this coming fall.
Watch party!
Actually, it's funny you say that, Rob, because that's part of the reason why. Originally, if you had asked me this like before all the teasers came out, I would have said 4 because it's like, oh, I thought it was pretty succinct in one season, and so I was like, where's it going to go from here? But then I saw the teasers and everything. It's like, oh, they have a plan. That's kind of what knocks it up for me. But anyway,
I'm a 5. Obviously, I have to watch everything. It's not one of those shows where, you know, I'll be on my phone or I'll be doing something else at the same time. Like, it has my full attention. I don't fall asleep during the show. I didn't fall asleep once.
Yeah.
And that is actually usually an issue for me. Like,
I can jump on your bandwagon.
I know.
When I'm ready to go to sleep, I do, but I could not go to sleep during that show.
And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I think the last episode we watched, it was over at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that is not a time that I see. But the show, like that, you know, it did that for me. It kept me interested and just, wanting to know more.
As stingy as I can be, I'm at a 5 stars as well.
Sorry.
Sorry.
You're the German judge.
Here we are.
Just leave.
4 and 5/6 average.
Yes. And the reason why I'm at a 5 stars, I kind of base it on what I call the chill factor. Did I get chills as I was watching this because it awoke in feelings? Were they multiplying? Whoa, don't turn this into a musical. I had chills from the opening titles, and I had chills with the ending. What a bookend. And I agree with Rob. You think it's wrapping up, you think it's going to be done, and then all of a sudden it presents this possibility that you're like, what? Whoa, mind blown. My mind was blown, so therefore it gets 5 stars. If they did not have the mind blow ending, I might be down where you are. But it's also it's a very tight 8 episodes. Everything that Kyle said is also true. It's a well mapped out, well paced, well performed, well written. I mean, everything that they did was well done. And it was jam packed, but didn't make you feel overwhelmed. And I can't think of a TV show in recent memory, even among some of the 5-star ones we covered, that has been so successful in its execution of its first season. That's how I would feel about that. So I'm also at 5 stars. So this is going to be a gushing panel because even Michael's German judge 4.5-star rating was couched with, I still love the show and I'm going to watch it forever. So
4.5 stars is still really, really high.
It is really high. So let's talk about season 1 and some of the plot points. What did you like? What didn't you like, if anything, or did you like everything? And let's just highlight some of those plot points. Go.
I think the thing I liked the most was Hopper. I love that. I mean, a lot of more modern movies and stuff always has like the sheriff or law enforcement as, you know, a bad guy or somebody who gets in people's way. I kind of miss that more heroic law enforcement. And I just love that character. He's an homage to a character in one of my favorite 80s horror movies called Night of the Creeps.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Oh, and he's named after a character that's skinned by the Predator.
I was expecting this to happen. All of the references that I missed are going to come from Kyle here.
For the horror, I'll take care of your 80s.
I really loved him. He was funny and had also this like depth of emotions beyond the obvious funny drunk cop cliche. And then, I mean, obviously everyone loves the kids, but for me, like, I loved any time it delved into Hopper and his past.
It's interesting you mentioned cliche because that's probably going to be my like thing that I'm going to harp back to on this discussion time and time again, is that all of the characters, including Hopper, were set up as cliches, and then they completely subverted all of those cliches, and Hopper is like the epitome of that, because they set him up as this like going to be this, you know, this like deadbeat cop who doesn't care about what's going to happen. He's just going to be like, yeah, whatever. And then there's like that moment in the first episode where he goes into the shed at Joyce's house and he's looking around and you're just like, wait a minute, he's like really into this and really like a smart detective. Like, he knows to go to the shed, he knows to look for the gun, he knows to, this is all like instinct that's just like, oh wow, he's really good at his job. And it just revs up from there, and it's like just instantly subverts that cliche that he's a deadbeat cop that's going to be like not caring. So yeah, I agree there.
Well, yeah, it just kind of already speaks to the intelligence of the writing. Everyone said it's so well written. I mean, they clearly wanted you to think that, and they fooled me. I mean, you could think that they're going to go a different direction, but you don't really know. And then it happened in such a good way for every single character.
Yeah, I mean, like even Steve, who obviously like the first half of the season
yes!
is just pointless, you know, douche, like, you know, he's
exactly.
a douchebag.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then you actually get more depth even into him.
There's a whole article about that on the AV Club, and I was like, oh wow, it's stuff that I didn't even think about. Like, it's subverting the rom-com cliche.
Yeah, I think Hopper starts one of my favorite quotes from the series when first Will is missing, and so Joyce is calling in the sheriff's phone, and he starts off by saying, you know, mornings are for coffee and contemplation. Go away, working off, hang over here, need my cup of coffee before you get started. And obviously as the episodes go on, he gets way more involved and is truly invested in more than one way to the actual outcome.
I liked Joyce.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there was a lot of feedback about Winona Ryder's performance, but I found her to be very organic. She sucked me in. I didn't have like a suspension of disbelief moment where it was like, oh, I'm watching Winona Ryder. No, she embodied Joyce Byers and this frantic mom who's had a lot of problems and has had to deal with those problems and be a single mom, and then one of her children gets kidnapped. I also really loved just the whole gang of the boys. It is very Goonies-like. I said that before, but it isn't cheesy. You know, they were actual I felt like they were kids that I knew at that time of life that played Dungeons and Dragons and made a whole thing about it and rode their bikes in the neighborhood and explored and kind of did all of these things and then get sucked into something they weren't quite expecting to get sucked into. Only, of course, in the context of this TV show, it's something completely out there and crazy and upside down, if you will. So what I really loved and what I really think the Duffer Brothers captured is the texture of the decade, which I guess I will talk about since I put the disclaimer out there. It literally did feel like I was reliving elementary school days. The fashion, the clothes were on point. The look of the elementary school that they were in, I don't know where they found that school, but it looked like a time capsule and sucked it up.
I'm sure it was like from the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah.
And just everything, every detail. Like, there are some And I was actually just watching one. Maybe it was Legends of Tomorrow. They went to like the 80s and their time travels. And
it probably looked really cheesy.
It looked incredibly cheesy.
Yeah.
Whereas with Stranger Things, it was like, oh my god.
The authenticity level is just really
yes,
up there. Yeah.
It's really up there. And it was very visceral is a really good word. I can't think of another one that suits it better. So it just sucked me in that way. And because I was so sucked in kind of having that flashback, I couldn't help but be entranced by the story too. So I really have to compliment the directors and the writers, which are the Duffer Brothers, because it's kind of amazing what they did with that.
Yeah, they really definitely took a page from the Mad Men playbook by authentically recreating the era as opposed to just like
putting some shoulder pads on some girl and some teased out crimped hair and calling it good.
There really wasn't like one character, of the entire show that didn't add to the story. Every actor was, they played their part really well. And I just really loved, with all of these sci-fi elements, there were, like, so many human elements of the show. Joyce obviously being the, distraught mother, but, the boys and, like, dealing with the bully on the playground at school and Nancy and Steve's relationship. And so that was definitely kind of brought you back to being in middle school, being in high school and going through puberty and adolescence and that time in your life. Right, you know what I mean? So there were some definite human moments that I thought, as scary and, the unknown side of this and the mystery of it, it was just kind of nice to have that balance.
Is there anybody on this panel who plays Dungeons and Dragons?
I have in the past. I'm not like a huge fanboy D&D player, but I have done in the past. Anyone else?
I know a lot about it because I have a lot of friends that are really into it, but I've never actually played myself.
I know something about it because I have a lot of friends who play it, but I have never had the patience for that kind of role-playing game.
Yeah. I know nothing about it.
Did you ask for a specific reason? Like you had something?
Yes.
Okay.
So, obviously, in some respects, the way the boys carry on their adventure, how the adventure starts, but also the live adventure that they have kind of searching for Eleven and confronting the Demogorgon, quote unquote, was a direct parallel to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
How did you feel about that? Michael, why don't you answer that question?
Well, from my limited experience with D&D, I liked the fact that was the setup for it. I liked the idea that they were essentially playing out their own live action, their like real life D&D for them, as opposed to it could have been like a cliche, again, where it could have just been like, I don't know, it could have been like, a direct rip-off of Goonies or whatever, and instead it was, I don't know, it just felt to me like more of a story parallel as opposed to hey, here's a reference to 80s, the kids play D&D, get it? They play D&D, that's a thing that happened in the 80s. It was very woven into it nicely from a story aspect because it was used as a reflection of the overall story involved, which I liked. So,
and that opening scene of them playing, it really does set up each one of how they play off each other and what each one adds to the group that the others are lacking.
And of course, I rewatched the first episode recently. I meant to do the whole series, but unfortunately I didn't get around to it. And the fact that, there's a whole bit where Will is, like, oh, I don't know what to do, and he rolls. It's like, I'll do a fireball, and then he gets eaten up or whatever by the Demogorgon, and that reflects what exactly happens to him later in the episode. So there might be some speculation to bring in speculation to season 2 that when they mentioned that one character in the last episode that might be setting up the season 2 arc.
Yeah, and that is going to be the monster for the next season. Vessel Hydra.
Which monster? I don't remember.
Vessel Hydra.
Okay.
Yep.
A much bigger monster.
Oh no!
That's right. If you see the teaser, there's that one image of that really awesome image of the red sky with the shadow, which is very John Carpenter-esque. It reminded me of The Fog, or not The Fog, The Mist. Then that's Stephen King. Well, there's a John Carpenter film, The Fog, right?
Yes.
And then there's The Mist, which is based on a Stephen King novella. Yes. That's the one I'm thinking of. But anyway. But the image of that red sky with the monster in the background looks very much like the little I'm going to use the wrong terminology here, and your D&D fans that are listening are going to yell at me and through their speakers.
If you are a D&D fan, please feel free to comment on this portion of the podcast. Because clearly none of us are.
It's not I'm going to call it a figurine, but that's not the technical term. And but anyway, the little figurine
Meeple?
they use. No, not Meeple. That's for like other board games. But,
okay. I felt good that I knew that word.
Whatever. Anyway, the little thing, the figurine thing, looks very much like that image, and I don't know if that's because that's what the monster is really going to look like, or if that's like an image of Will Byers' psyche in the second season. I mean, again, it's all speculation.
Whoa.
I've been following the pop culture blogs, and I was following the breakdowns of everyone. You know how it is on like the AV Club or whatever, where it's like, let's dissect the teaser trailer one shot at a time. And so I read all of those. It's like, oh wow, that's interesting. Look up the AV Club and EW.com, and you'll find all of the breakdowns of the teasers if you're interested.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. That was for your listeners as well.
All right.
I think my favorite tie-in or use of D&D was, I think it's early on when they're asking Eleven if she knows where Will is.
Oh, yeah.
And she sits down,
cool.
basically swipes the board with her forearm, flips
Turns
it over,
over.
and then just puts Will's piece right in the middle of a black abyss.
And then the Demogorgon right next to it.
Again, another like just chills moment of kind of becoming a reality of what she knows and everything else. And it was a good use of almost just a prop, the scene there to tie it together.
So this is an excellent segue. Let me ask
You were
this.
going to do this? I know her.
It's because you're my sister. This is why I put the disclaimer out. What do you think the Upside Down is?
A parallel dimension.
Yeah, parallel universe. One closest to ours.
Yeah.
I mean, because it seems like the way I interpreted it is that, like everything that's there still mirrors what you're seeing in reality. Mm-hmm. Like,
there's school.
Yeah, there's school, and then they're like their little fort that they have in the woods and all of that jazz. So that's the way I interpreted it as well. I don't know. I thought it was fairly clear.
Is it a parallel dimension that just exists, or is it a parallel dimension that exists as a result of the imaginations of this dimension?
Oh.
I think it already existed. I just think it just happens to be so close and connected to ours that it was the easiest for 11 to reach.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the Demogorgon?
Okay, so
the what now?
The Vessel Hydra.
Vessel Hydra.
So going back to The Mist, which is, if you haven't seen the film version of The Mist,
I have not.
It's a Frank Darabont film from the last few years, I think about 10 years ago. It's a great movie, actually, completely different from the Stephen King book. It's a very similar concept. So, like, the idea of in fact, I'm pretty sure it's an homage to this, but the idea of the military or the secret government, whatever, opening up the portal to this other dimension, and then it seeps into our dimension. It's very similar, where like the monsters coming through the portal and everything. So I think it's just like a parallel dimension that they happen to open up into, and the monsters are just seeping through. It's like the life forms from that dimension seeping through into ours.
So there are no humans in this parallel dimension?
That's a good question, though. I'm not sure of that. Yeah, that's the thing.
When they were walking through, Hopper and Joyce, to find Will, I mean, you didn't see a lot of life.
No.
So I don't think those sorts of monsters really allow for that to happen, which makes them that much more scary.
I was going to say, it's terrifying when they were walking through.
I had a feeling that dimension is like on its last legs, and that's one of the reasons the Demogorgon. I feel like the Demogorgon was desperate to find, because I mean, obviously, as you see in like the last episode, how it reproduces.
There are pods like an alien.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I have a feeling that
There's
world.
another reference.
Yep.
I have a feeling that world, there's very little left, and so now that there's a hole.
Like it's
more
dying.
things are like they're desperate to get out because their world's almost at its end.
He hadn't shared this with me. That's interesting.
Did he just blow your mind?
A little bit. And we have many conversations. We're nerds.
What? I'm shocked. No, I'm not.
Well, it is interesting you bring up the whole imagination aspect. I never thought of it that way before. That it could be the product of, somebody's imagination, like Eleven's, or that it's,
Because wouldn't that be an homage to the never-ending story?
Exactly, yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, wow. See, that's something I did not catch. But that is a good I can see that.
Never-ending possibilities.
Yeah. And it would make sense with the whole idea that not only is it all these monsters living there, but it's also all of the settings are exactly the same. You know, there's Steve Harrington's house. I mean, when Barb is captured, she goes inside the pool of Steve Harrington's house. So she doesn't go anywhere in space, quote unquote. She's just going into this new dimension. So I think the school is there. I think the cabin's there. All of the same locations of our world are in that parallel dimension, wherever it is. So that's a very good point. I could see that.
Barb's death is confirmed by the producer slash director slash writer. They're all the same people.
R.I.P.
Well, they're being weird about that. Her death is confirmed, but they did confirm that actress is coming back in the next season.
But maybe she's coming back as a
for
product of
flashbacks
the Thessahydra.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe she's one of... Because
Or
a Hydra...
flashbacks.
Flashbacks. I mean, a Hydra implies multiple heads, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So... I don't know what that's going to take on. If it's going to take on people it's consumed.
We know Thessahydra, but what else? I mean, more than one thing could come through this season, obviously.
I really wish I knew more D&D monsters.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing I don't know, so, I mean...
But I'm still not inspired to play the game.
It's too much math.
It's too much math. It's way too much stuff.
Well, if you play the older versions of the games like they were playing, it's not that much math.
Well, it's not that way anymore.
Yeah, that's the problem. The new versions of the game are really, they're very like technical, mechanical, and again, your D&D fans are probably going to be like, what? No, what the heck is he talking about?
Sorry, man.
They are very passionate, usually.
Yeah. I like boards.
Well, you can have boards in D&D.
I was saying, don't even get into that realm. Let's just move on.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
We digress.
We do digress.
The kids did have a board.
They did have a board. But is that
Anyway.
a board that came with the game or a board they made?
Probably the one they made.
Okay, that's what I think, too.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens. So let's talk about 11. She's kind of the big deal.
Oh, yes.
So what did we think about 11?
I mean, so much of the mystery was pretty much wrapped up in her for a good many portion of the episodes. And that girl, Millie Bobby Brown, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Holy smokes for you.
Yeah. She's pretty amazing. I loved her character from the moment she was introduced. I thought she was just a great way to humanize what the darker aspects of the show were, and just because of all of the turmoil she was going through and all of the absolute horror that she had to deal with being locked up in that facility and having to communicate with this parallel dimension with awful monsters that eat people and, suck out whatever, turn them into slugs or whatever. This happens to Will Byers at the end of the series. She's a great amalgamation of all these different, characters from Stephen King, Spielberg, and everything. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how to describe her.
She reminds me a little of Firestarter.
Yes, I was mouthing that when you were talking about her during the character breakdown at the beginning. It's like,
I didn't catch that.
you were looking elsewhere.
It's true.
Because we're sitting next to each other. So.
I enjoyed just the sneak peek early and just her powers. And one of the first times you see her, she's eating the burger, and she's just really annoyed by the noise that the fan's making on the side of the restaurant. Just simple, click, and all of a sudden the fan stops and just going back to eating her burger.
The best thing about that is the fact that she just no big deal. I just stopped a fan from working, and it's just it's just the way she looks afterwards. It's like, yeah, finally I can relax. And just the look on her face afterwards is so funny.
To see just how vast her powers truly are as the episodes go on, and also seeing the toll it takes on her, which was amazing to watch.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the biggest thing that fascinates me about her, at least from a viewer standpoint of view, is that, no one can really relate to her because she's obviously supernatural, but, I mean, nevertheless...
Possibly not born of any human?
Correct.
She has no
That was
name?
my confusion. So will somebody please explain to me where she came from?
Oh,
it's not really described.
It is that comatose lady's daughter. They
that's
put her on a lot of
right.
test drugs, and the government knew that the fetuses were affected by the test drugs, so they knew, and so they took them as soon as they were born, and then fudged the records to say that they were all miscarried. and then they raised them with
That's
powers,
right.
and she was the
forgot
only
about
one
that
that lived to that age.
See, that I was really confused, and I was also confused because Dr. Brenner treated her like, because obviously,
His own daughter.
yeah,
You watch the movie Scanners or anything
Oh,
like that?
yeah.
It's homage to that. So
Yeah.
like you just like if you've seen that movie, you just know that that's what they went with. That this whole generation of kids was affected by this drug, and the government covered it up.
That's right. See, I forgot about that
Yeah,
bit, but
yeah,
yes, that
that's
is very
that was the
clearly
one part I
established.
really struggled through because there was a lot of kind of stream of consciousness filming as they kind of flashed back and flashed forward, and there was a lot of flashing lights in the facility, which were very confusing. And so I was just kind of like trying to add it together, and I was like, she's clearly an orphan. I'll just go with that. So
I almost
moved on.
thought that they were going to make the big thing that she was going to be secretly Hopper's daughter, but that didn't come
That's
to pass.
kind of what I
Again,
thought
they
of,
set
too.
it up like that, and then they completely subverted your expectations.
A lot of her scene, as dark as her storyline is, like everything that happened to her and her escaping, her wonder at finding this world of acceptance and that it definitely took away, because it would otherwise be a very bleak series. And that sense of wonder and friendship really is one of the
And
things that makes
teen
the
crush.
show great. Yes.
She had a little crush.
So what I was saying earlier when we digressed was that it's like
sorry.
no, you're fine. It's just that it even though she is possibly whatever, all the things that you may have speculated in the beginning, you still ended up empathizing with her character over all the normal people characters. I felt, at least for me, I just felt my heart going out to her because she's going through all of those people experiences along the way. And I think that left one of the biggest impressions, especially towards the end of the 8 episodes.
She wasn't allowed to be a child. She was
Right, exactly.
a lab experiment for that entire time.
I don't know if I personally empathize with her more than any other characters, but definitely on the level of some of the more distressed ones. I kind of felt, and maybe it's because of my age, but I kind of slingshotted between her and Joyce, particularly, because you knew that Will was alive, and I was really intrigued by the whole, like you said, the Ouija board on the wall and the bulging wallpaper and, things that which is a poltergeist thing, I think. I was trying to keep track of all the different references.
Yeah. Well, after a while, you forget about them. You remember them when you're like, oh yeah. When
you're enthralled.
Yeah, but
you have to go back and rewatch.
After a while, the story's what drives
and
me.
some of these movies I haven't seen since that time, or at least for a long time. So it's kind of hard, but I get what you're saying too.
Yeah.
She's a phenomenal actress and took on an exceptionally kind of emotionally heavy part.
Very much so.
As the only parent on the panel, I can especially relate to that. That, just the idea that you can't let go of the fact that in the back of your head, your child is safe-ish. And you know that if you could just reach out to your child and bring your child back from the brink of whatever is happening, and just the absolute dread and also the absolute desperation is so real. And again, she's set up as the Melinda Dillon character from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, of being just absolute, distraught and hysterical and not really being much else other than hysterical. And she completely takes control and actually does something. She
More like the Terminator mom.
yes, Sarah Connor. Yep,
Sarah Connor.
Yes. So yeah,
Just watch that too.
It's very relatable. It's very real, which is very interesting for a show like this to be so supernatural, to have those real elements.
So let's talk about the end of the season, because obviously the mystery builds, and much of the series is kind of the search and question, right? They're all looking for Will. There's weird things that are happening. A lot of those weird things are because of 11, but there's other weird
And Demogorgon.
You have sort of the dichotomy between people who don't want to know that weird things are happening and people that are only too aware of it. But then we get to the end of the season where all of this is brought to a huge boil, and they actually are forced to confront the Demogorgon and Dr. Brenner, and neither of them fare very well. It's them versus 11, and she wins-ish both times. So how did you feel about the ending, first of all? Let's start there.
It's very well tied up. It's all very well. It's lots of great tension and lots of action thrown in together. I really liked. I liked the line that 11 walks, because she's clear, again, fire starter. Mm-hmm. She's an innocent being so young, but she's doing these rather horrible things to people. I mean, she's killing people with her mind and her powers.
But she's aware of it.
She's aware of it, yes, that's a good point. But I just like the line she's walking and the way the kids want to help out, and Mike, and I like the fact that, they come together at the end when there's this fracturing between their group. And of course, there's that aspect of what happens to everybody. What happens to Hopper? Because he's kind of... Let's talk about that. What happened with Hopper? Did he actually do something kind of that subverts his own ethics?
Does he work for them now?
Yeah.
Does he work for that government agency now?
I think he's just feeding them false information to protect 11.
I think I kind of agree with that.
I feel like he, in his own way, he's regained the daughter he lost.
He's redeeming. Yeah, I think that's it. But how about... Obviously, 11 squares off psychokinetically with the Demogorgon. The Demogorgon disappears, but then so does 11. Did she go to the Upside Down? Did she die? Where'd she go?
I was thinking about this, and I have a feeling, Kyle, you'll be on the same page as this. When I was re-watching the first episode, the thing that caught my mind was the reference to X-Men number 134. And I was like, I wonder what that comic book is. And I looked it up. Do you know what it is?
I don't.
Okay, X-Men 134. Oh, I'm so happy I know this. X-Men 134, I looked it up. It's the Dark Phoenix of the X-Men series. And if you know the Dark Phoenix story, they're setting 11 up. Mm-hmm. They're setting 11 up as a Dark Phoenix character.
I wouldn't remember the number. That's not what I do, but I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I also was thinking more about this, and so it's probably what happened is that she has sacrificed herself. She has something has happened to her that she's disintegrated, whatever, and she's going to come back in a different form or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Are you familiar with the X-Men, guys?
If you need filling on that, Jean Grey is a telekinetic.
Yep.
And then when her powers get so powerful, she essentially evolves to a higher form, Dark Phoenix, but it's like without morality. And it's power without control.
Yes.
Because when she did, defeat the Demogorgon, she turns right before then and says, "Bye, Mike." So, she knows that something's about to happen where she's going to be going away, but then she comes back or not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wasn't he giving Eggos to...
He was leaving Eggos in the woods.
Yeah, he was leaving Eggos in the woods for her. So it implies, to some degree, even he knows kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
He knows that she's still around or that she will come back or something.
I'm totally fascinated. You blew my mind with the Dark Phoenix thing.
But
will she be power without morality? Because Dark Phoenix is some scary stuff.
Do you want me, Kylie? Do you want me to blow your mind even more?
Sure, Michael.
Again, I think it's subverting it. I think they're setting her up to be the Dark Phoenix, and it's going to be Will. Because he went to the Upside Down. He, died, quote unquote, by going to the Upside Down, and was quote unquote resurrected.
If they go to the Upside Down?
It's all like it's a metaphor. It's not like literally he didn't die, but he went there as kind of like dying, quote unquote, and then he kind of came back from the dead when he was brought out of the Upside Down, and then he's got that slug that he coughs up at the very last image.
Oh right, I
so
remember
it's
that.
like. It's almost like they're setting him up to be like this dark
Kylie doesn't
character.
like gross things, people.
No, I repressed him coughing up the slug. I forgot about that completely.
See, that reminds me of the X-Files.
It's almost like
the X-Files too.
I'm just saying, like it could be one of those things.
And obviously, Will is still connected to the Upside Down because the whole world transforms in that moment when he's coughing it up. So how much is he stuck in that?
Yeah.
And the way he coughed it up and then nonchalantly went back to what he was doing, is he even aware of it? I mean, like, is he still the Will Byers that went into that world?
Or maybe he's just being a kid trying to ignore it because he knows something's wrong, but he doesn't want to tell everybody and disappoint them.
So are we thinking that Will Byers has assumed some powers? Like 11?
I think something's definitely rubbed off on him.
I think
for
he's
spending
infected,
that much more
is
time.
how I would say.
Yeah.
I think that world left its mark, and he's not even fully aware of it.
And that's what happened to 11 too?
Well, I think 11 knew that as long as she was in Mike's life and their life, the government would keep going. So I think she purposely did that.
No, yeah, I know, but I mean to get her powers. Like how she got her powers. Was it a matter of they shoved her into the Upside Down and she was infected to become this way?
Mm-hmm. No,
I don't get that.
That her telekinetic powers were all like It's very much like Scanners. It was some sort of chemical the government was
Yeah, that's
testing.
what I took it as.
Yeah,
Like an
that's
experiment.
how she got her powers. And then that
Also
world
very
wasn't
X-Files-like.
accessed until she had reached that higher state of consciousness while in the deprivation tank.
I would say if anything, his power is just his connection to the other universe.
Yeah.
Oh, so you don't think there's going to be anything more than just sort of this hyper-awareness?
I have a feeling like other creatures will use him as a gateway. Like I
Yeah.
feel like he's still 1 foot in that world.
Oh.
That's
yeah.
what I think.
If you go back to the Dark Phoenix thing,
Like, he'll never just be Willie.
Yeah, like
he'll
never not
This
be out
reminds
of
me
it.
of something else.
the arc of the second season might be, is it saving Eleven from the darkness of whatever she's coming back from, or is it saving Will from the darkness of whatever
Or
he was coming back?
both.
Or both. Or both works too. So, pure speculation. But I was like, oh, that's an
But that's your
intriguing idea.
prediction?
Yes, that's my
Okay.
prediction.
Throughout the
Yes.
series, there's little connections between the two universes where they're in the fort or in when she's holding the
Yeah,
ball of lights or in
exactly.
the little cubby hole in the living room. They can sense each other through the dimensions. So he's like a gateway then moving forward.
Yeah.
If he has that special connection to go between.
I guess I have to rewatch it because
Yeah.
there was a lot of. It was packed.
I
I
really
really
feel
wanted
like
to
I
watch
need
it. I
to,
really
too.
wish I had saw the
I
whole
might
thing.
rewatch
been
it
a while.
before watching season 2 as it gets released. Do you have any other predictions for season 2?
I feel like the scope, they're going to open it way up. I mean, they had a fairly limited budget for the first season, which they used to like maximum effect. But it wasn't expected. It was expected to be a smaller Netflix show. It wasn't ever expected to be as big as their other shows,
Like you said, it was-
Daredevil and
it's a
that.
Small demographic,
now.
and then boom,
Yeah.
phenomenon.
They
On
clearly
par with
didn't.
Orange is the New Black. It gets almost as many hits.
I just feel like the mythology is just going to be hugely expanded because now they can do whatever they want without having to worry about like the financial aspect.
I feel like I'll read up on Dungeons and Dragons. I
You
say
can
with a shake
peruse
of my
Kyle's
head.
movie collection more.
Some of them are scary. I've
just
opened
read
up
the back.
my mind for this.
I mean, to me, like they were talking about the theme, which is
Oh,
very
yes.
haunting and stuff. But to me, it's very John Carpenter. Yeah, and he's obsessed with John Carpenter, and so it's like as soon as I sat down and I heard that, I was like, well, damn, this just seems like it sounds like already one of those movies. And there's posters on the John Carpenter posters and everything.
The teacher's watching the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I wonder what's going to happen to Hopper if he's going to go further into giving up his morals in order to keep the secret or in order to keep the kids safe, to go to the government facility and work with them. I wonder if there's going to be if there's kind of an arc there with him where he's going to have to descend into his own darkness and come back from it.
I wonder how it's going to affect the kids because,
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
kind of knew about this in the town, too. Like, they were all talking about Joyce and the kid being gone, and now he's
They had
back.
a funeral for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it'll be interesting to see where that kind of happens because it is supposed to be like a smaller town, and everyone kind of knows what happens in smaller towns.
In the Midwest.
Yes. Lots of judginess sometimes. So, yeah. It'll be interesting to see what kind of happens to them, too. Plus, obviously, we know that Will's storyline with the whole Upside Down isn't done, so it'll be
Not
interesting.
to mention those bullies. I mean, that
Right?
one that one was obviously revealed to be pretty much homicidal, and now Eleven's not there to protect him. And,
Oh, no.
yes, that's right.
Well, until she is there.
yeah,
Dot, dot, dot.
Dot, dot, dot. So this is the Duffer Brothers' first TV show creation. They've really only had some limited writing engagements, and then they made this. What do you think of their first time out, and would you watch other shows they create?
definitely.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling the studio that owns the rights to Stephen King's It are really kicking themselves now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah. Although Pennywise in the teaser posters looks pretty freaky.
He's a Skarsgård.
Yeah. Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Yes.
one of
Which
the
one?
the younger Skarsgårds
Yes,
is
it's
playing
not much,
it.
yeah.
Except I hate the ending of that story, so I loved the book until the ending, and then I was like, "Arr." So disappointing. What about you guys?
Yeah, they've got a pretty good recipe, I'd say, between, just the look of everything, the nostalgia, down to the music and the sounds, and they've got a pretty good thing going.
Yeah, we keep saying homages and references and tip the cap to this or that, but it's done so genuinely that it's not corny at all. It's not just put in for just the sake of putting it in. So even if you don't know the reference, if it goes completely over your head, you haven't seen that movie or that series, it still seems like it's supposed to be a part of the storyline itself.
Well, yeah, like if you're completely oblivious, it is still an amazing show. Well acted, well written, well directed, all of the things without all the references. That just makes it even better.
Yeah, and I'm actually excited by that because I think these guys do have a good recipe, and if they ever come up with something else, I think I would immediately say, oh yeah, I'm watching that. The Stranger Things was so good in its first out of the gate season.
Such a fresh thing when in a world where a lot of things are kind of regurgitated in different ways. I mean, with the references, I wouldn't really say is a regurgitation because it's different. It's not the same type of formula.
They clearly come up with a formula too to bridge the gap to viewers that normally wouldn't, get into this genre, this series. They've created something special that is more just touches the masses clearly by the reaction.
I definitely think they're going to have free reign in the industry to do whatever the heck they want to do from now on. And it won't surprise me if sometime in the near future they are given some high-profile remake / update or whatever, and it just becomes this thing. It's that's usually and that's what happens in Hollywood now. You do your own thing, whatever it ends up being, and then you make a cultural mark, and then suddenly you're handed here, have a DC character, or here, have a Marvel character, and then you get this big, huge production. Well,
I think they should stick to horror, though.
Oh yes, of course. So I meant that as a
general,
a general
like a Joss
idea.
Whedon. Were you making a Joss Whedon reference?
Yes.
So how does Stranger Things compare, and this is because we're doing a first look episode, this is why these questions pop up. How does Stranger Things compare to other TV shows, other Netflix original shows, or other genre shows? Of course, the only other show that I can think that even remotely kind of comes close to this genre-wise in terms of its combination or formula is The X-Files. Except that it's all arc and no standalone.
It reminded me of an 8-hour movie. Here's full disclosure, I am more of a movie person than TV person, which of course...
Which is why you do the one-off TV episode.
Exactly. Yes. So
everything is explained.
So I looked at it as an 8-hour movie, and as an 8-hour movie, it really felt unique, because it felt because there were no one-offs, and there were no... It didn't seem like to me that there was an episode anywhere in the series where it felt like it was just spinning the wheels. It didn't feel like there was momentum the entire way. It had it was 8 acts, first act, second act, third act, 8 acts, I feel like it feels unique to me. It doesn't feel like any other show on Netflix. It doesn't feel like any other show on HBO or network TV or anywhere.
I would definitely rate it above most other shows. I mean, you can tell that there's no interference. It's just pure creativity, whereas other shows have filler to fill out a certain episode order, or you can feel like the executives in charge of it are putting their input into it. It just feels like art. So it feels more natural, more pleasing to me.
Good description.
You second that emotion?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't think there's much else on TV that's like it, and I think that's part of the huge draw that everybody's having to it. I mean, you said the X-Files, and it felt like it was drawing from that too a little bit, but even the X-Files homages things itself. So, yeah, I don't think there's much else like it, and it's amazing. I'm excited for October.
31st, Netflix.
You all agree? Everyone agrees with this?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For the, let's say, 100 people that may not have watched it, would you recommend Stranger Things to them? Why or why not?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean...
I think they kind of already said it. I mean, even if you don't know those things, already people who said they don't like horror, I love the show. People who said that, maybe you wouldn't get all the references, I love the show. It's well acted. I love the show. Yeah, you should probably give it at least a shot.
I mean, like,
There's an answer to any
Yes.
objection that somebody might
Yes,
have.
exactly.
I don't like Stephen King. Do you like Steven Spielberg? You'll love it.
the funny thing is, like, I feel kind of like how the writers, the guys that created it, felt when they were promoting it. Like, I would have recommended it to my horror friends, but based on everything else I've seen and they were saying, I wouldn't have recommended it to everyday people. And then I watched it, and it's like, this is accessible to everybody.
Yeah, there's something for everybody. You know, from the sci-fi and the horror and the mystery, the, you know, investigation, the romance, the, you know, childlike themes and qualities. I just think there's something for everybody. Any sort of viewer out there, you're going to find something you like about it.
In 8 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. If nothing else, you can recommend it on the fact that it's a very low commitment.
Very true.
It's not a 22 episode commitment. So if you were really having some trepidation about it, give it a try on that mark alone. And then if you think we're wrong, I'd be interested in knowing. Leave us a comment or tell us, you know, if Stranger Things wasn't your cup of tea, I'd be interested to know if anybody's out there just
And
like
why.
that. And
I would like to
But
hear
don't be
the
mean.
contrary opinion. That would be interesting.
wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is probably a pretty self-explanatory, obvious answer, but are you going to keep watching?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Although it's
I'm sure
interesting we
they're
didn't
happy
talk
too.
about. It's interesting we didn't talk about the whole, like, I think Chelsea was saying, or Rob, one of you two were saying that you thought it was interesting that it was going to be. It didn't feel like it felt like it was just going to be a one-off thing, a one-off season, and even the title says Stranger Things. It's not. It's a very general title.
Yeah.
It almost lends itself to, and this is kind of part of me why I originally would have given it 4 stars, is that I was like, oh, they're making a season 2 and it's going to be the same characters and everything? Oh, okay, well, I would have liked to have seen other eras or other stories or I would have thought it would be cool anthology series, the new anthology of the season-long arc, and then they do another season that's an homage to
when
a
they
different...
came up the title, that's what they were originally planning.
Okay, yeah.
But everyone, and they ended up loving the kid characters so much that they're like, we can't move from this.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I was initially upset, but then I saw the teaser and everything. I was like, okay, they have a plan. They're obviously not just spinning their wheels now. So I am still interested in, more interested now that I have seen the teasers and the trailer and definitely understand the plan they have than I was originally.
I mean, I got excited just from seeing Dustin in the Ghostbusters.
Yes.
section.
Yes, that's amazing.
I was like, yay!
Is Dustin one of your favorite characters?
I love all of them.
Okay. Again,
I don't discriminate there.
This is from the Entertainment Weekly preview that they did a while back. But apparently they're going to do a thing where he gets a little teeny tiny little like Pollywog type character friend from the Upside Down. It's going to be like a Gremlins thing. Yeah, and so he's going to have like this little like character, like this little like friend that he's going to have.
See, that's the other thing. Like a lot of people, because I am pretty nerdy, but there's a lot of like really nerdy people out there who love to really deep speculate.
Yes.
I like to be immersed in the surprise.
There you go. Sorry, I tried. Oh wait, I spoiled it.
No, you're fine. That's fine, because my husband does that all the time. But I'm just saying, I do. I can't wait. But I like the surprise of things. Like, I like to see that little tease, and that's just enough for me to get me going. And then I'm like, the wheels turn, but I like to wait and see.
As the wheels turn.
Yes.
What I was going to say, though, and kind of to bridge, there's nothing preventing them from, and it would actually be a clever homage again to 80s with all the trilogies that happened. You know, your Star Wars, original Star Wars, your Back to the Futures, your original Indiana Jones, all of that notion. They could conceivably do 3 seasons and then change it up on us.
That would be
and make it like a
interesting.
tri-season anthology situation. Something for you to consider. Please call me.
Well, it is interesting.
I'm sure
they're not
they
calling
may
it.
not have thought of that.
It is interesting they're calling it Stranger Things 2, not Stranger Things Season 2. It is very much being set up like a sequel, like a traditional 80s sequel.
The Empire Strikes Stranger Things Back.
Kind of like that.
Back to the Future Part Stranger Things 2. I don't know. Is there anything else you would like to say, speculate about, general discuss, related to Stranger Things Season 1 or the upcoming second season?
How have we gone this far and not talked about Barb? I mean, come on, people.
We did.
Oh, we did?
We did.
We did
Not
talk
that
about
much.
Barb.
Not that much.
It was proportionate to how much she's in.
Indeed.
Yes.
I know a lot of people like the Barb character. I didn't.
I mean,
Somebody needed to die, and it was her.
yeah, and
That would have been my choice.
Yeah, I mean, it just became part of the thing. I mean, yeah, I don't think there was really much more to it. I do like her.
I knew Barb's. I knew
Yes.
Barb's in your... Yeah,
She
yeah.
did. I remember that.
I just know because it's such a huge fan thing from the online community. The whole hashtag Justice for Barb is like a huge thing. So.
Well, maybe she's going to come back and she's going to be like one of the
monster.
Thessal Hydra's sub-monster things. Whatever they're called. The little monsters that become the big monsters.
Oh,
legions.
Minion?
Yeah, minion.
Okay.
Whoa.
That's the word. Sorry, I guess I had a little short circuit there.
Well, we haven't talked about Jonathan Byers at all. And we really haven't talked about Will and his... I mean, well, we did. But we haven't talked about Jonathan. We haven't talked
We didn't talk about Jonathan. He's
Yeah.
right.
Or Steve.
How did you guys feel about Nancy not ending up with Jonathan? Because I know there were some people that were really mad about that.
At first, it was
I
one
was
of those
okay
things.
with it.
I felt it was more realistic.
They were clearly leading it down the whole, and this is an
Traditional.
80s trope where,
Mhm.
you know, she's all crushing on the jockey kind of guy, but then there's sort of the bad boy on the fringes of...
He's kind of weird,
And he's
but
a little
you don't
weird.
know what's going on there.
So it was a little... What was that movie with Ethan Hawke and he was kind of nerdy? I think it was Lucas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was very Lucas-like, the way where it was going. Although he wasn't very... Jonathan's not a typically nerdy character,
Yeah.
but he has sort of that weirdness.
He has that weirdness, yeah. Like he gets picked on in school too.
Yeah, but I actually felt like the Jonathan character was somewhat two-dimensional and trope-like.
Yeah.
They didn't give him much independent of, I'm supporting my mom, or I'm supporting this girl that might like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
I felt like we got a little bit more once with his interactions with his dad.
Yeah,
Oh,
That
yeah.
kind of
some.
fleshed him out a little bit more.
And maybe there'll be more...
There's more to
and-
explore there.
Yeah, I think there's more to explore there. And I think what they were really trying to zero in on was less the teen characters. And actually, I kind of got occasionally annoyed when it went to the teen characters.
Okay, I'm with you there. Actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I was like, you know, the junior characters and the adult characters were, I felt the focal points of the story were, and I felt like the teen characters were sort of a distraction / extra homage layer that they could build in, like references to Brat Pack movies
Yeah.
and... You know, because not everybody watched all the horror movies.
Yeah.
Or the
It's that different
Well, it
aspect
also
of,
provided
yeah.
that balance too.
Yeah, it provided balance, and I think there are obviously there are people that are passionate about these characters, but I also think aside from Barb, although we don't know what's going to happen with Barb, there's more room for them to kind of grow in season 2, and I think they'll let that happen. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Byers family if
Yes.
Will is a pod person. That's what I'm going to call him now. Pod person.
And Nancy was kind of like a good character where they set her up as the teeny... They set her up as a final girl, but she ends up being more like... I feel like she takes control really well in the end there, like going into the Upside Down. And I feel like, isn't in the end she's like has the shotgun at some point, doesn't she, at the end? Or am I forgetting that because I haven't seen the last episode in a while? I don't know. Anyone help me?
I think
out
so.
there?
Yeah, when they were trying to
Yeah.
catch the demo
When they're at
the house.
I think she picks it up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know, she feels more like they set her up
She's
kind
not a
of...
helpless teenage girl.
Exactly.
She can actually take some charge because you think she's just going to be a helpless, annoying teenage girl.
She's the Molly Ringwald of our
Yeah.
set.
She becomes more like Ripley from Aliens. She kinda
She's
comes
the
like-
Ripley?
I feel like she could be.
She could get there, maybe.
She could be the
Eventually.
Ripley, I guess.
I
I suppose
felt
if we've
like
already
11
made
was
Joyce...
a baby Ripley.
I thought, yeah, from Alien 3, because she
Yeah.
was bald.
Just that, not just the physical thing.
Shout out to Stephen Gray if you're listening. He really loves Alien 3.
Yes,
He's like one
very
of the
true.
only people ever.
I think that movie is a little bit underrated. I will say that. Anyway.
No, it is underrated. It's better than the fourth one, but I still like the first two the best.
Yes.
So
I
Would you like
agree.
to weigh in, Kyle?
The director's cut is a really good movie. The theatrical version
Of
is
Alien
horrible.
3?
Yes.
okay.
the work print cut.
There was some, I had some problems with that one. That was David Fincher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love David Fincher as a director.
They cut out like an hour of his movie and refilmed it. So if you actually see the one that has that hour put back in, it's a really good movie.
Fair enough. Maybe I'll grab me a director's cut. I do love that series, minus the fourth one. Well, then, with that said, I'm going to read this little conclusory statement that I've been reading since January because we want you to know that CPU is produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, Chief Couch Potato, and hails from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us. That's very important. On iTunes or Stitcher Radio or Google Play. Give us stars. We would like 5. Just to tell you that. I would like to place an order of 5 stars. Thank you. You can also comment on YouTube so that we can spread the word more effectively. If you have suggestions on shows we might consider that we aren't already doing, contact us at our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, via our email, couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, or via Facebook and Twitter. We're adding new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time. As always, we have several more new episodes coming down the pike and are available and searchable via the web. We're literally everywhere, so make sure you subscribe to the blog, any one of those channels or social media accounts, and stay up on new events and episodes. Until the next time, Stranger Things is a Netflix show, so that's where it can be streamed. Again, you owe us money. Season 2 is slated to drop on Netflix on Halloween of this year. We will then cover Season 2, most likely in November or December or sometime after Halloween. Until the next time we convene and the next time CPU publishes, keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned. Bye-bye.